President Trump, this is to both of you really, President Trump exposed a nativist kind of anger or angst that found expression in the relationship with Mexico. So,
right.
So there was something there, and if that's the case, and what it was a kind of grievance against Mexico that he gave expression to. How real is that, and how can it be dealt with?
Well, I do think there is, certainly in a certain segment of the American population, there is a feeling of grievance, and a number of them have blamed NAFTA for this. I don't think correctly, because as studies have shown, it's really been automation, new technology, and some trade, but not really within NAFTA, trade with China and elsewhere, that have contributed to job losses. And there were not many alternatives for a certain segment of these people. So the solution, however, is to try and help this segment of people understand the reality, and then if we can make NAFTA better, as Ambassador Gutierrez was saying, let's do that.
I would disagree slightly. I don't think it's a grievance with Mexico. I think it's a grievance with how increasingly working middle classes in America feel that trade and the changing demographics of towns and cities and the societies in which they lived in are tapping into certain triggers of fear and uncertainty, and the fact that Mexico is part of NAFTA and that we have about 5 million undocumented of the 11 million undocumented people in the United States, 5 million of those are in Mexico. That sort of provides an easy platform to scapegoat Mexico and use Mexico as an electoral piñata, which is what Donald Trump did, I think, in a deplorable and demagogic way during the campaign. But I think the challenge is, one, something that successive Mexican-American and Canadian governments have done very poorly, which is to understand that there will be losers as a result of free trade. And how do you put in place domestic mechanisms to retrain, to create safety networks for displaced labor? And none of the free countries have done this successfully over the 20-plus years of NAFTA. Second, an issue which is profoundly domestic in nature in the U.S., which is how do you resolve a broken immigration system? How do you bring 11 million people out of the shadows, but how do you provide the circular mobility of labor that will allow the U.S. to continue to grow? There's a study out there, came out the past couple of days, where it shows that the states and the cities that are growing the fastest are the ones where you have significant numbers of immigrants in the labor force. So there's a direct connection there. So, and then Mexico has also a responsibility, because Mexico's Achilles heel for many, many years now is the narrative that's being created in the U.S. as to corruption, impunity, lack of rule of law in Mexico. And you're not going to solve that by throwing money to, sorry guys, PR firms in Washington, D.C. This is something that is going to have to be solved by sustained efforts by successive Mexican governments to take on the issue of lack of rule of law, impunity, and corruption, which have sort of fed into this narrative that has been built on NAFTA and on 5 million undocumented Mexican migrants living in the U.S.
Let's just focus.